Hello and welcome to Faith Evolving. My name is Mary Clare, and today we're going to be discussing the Tower of Babel and Ken Ham's deeply ironic new architectural aspirations. This is a bit of old news, but just across the Ohio River in the yee state of horse races and bourbon is the Creation Museum, and its very anti-evolutionary exhibits, and also its biblically accurate replica ark. Now, I live in Ohio, and without fully doxing myself, let's just say it would be a feasible trip there, and my friends and I did look into tickets a few months ago. However, holy smokes, those boys aren't cheap. But the Creation Museum's mastermind, Ken Ham, is a whole other kettle of fish that my dear friend Jen already covered on their channel Fundy Fridays. But with all that being said, yes, from the creative mind of Ken Ham comes a brand new attraction, the Tower of Babel, which is, from what I understand, planned to be a large ziggurat-style building with exhibits aimed at the devil's dearest scheme, critical race theory. I have a video about critical race theory and someone being like, it's not biblical, that I made almost a year ago. And I rewatch it, and there are a couple things I feel like I would have said differently, but that video does exist if you want to check it out. And now Twitter had its fun, making fun of the fact that we're rebuilding the Tower of Babel. But you're not here for snark. I know you. You're here for that hard-hitting theology. And I'm ready to deliver. So dearies, it's Bible time. Flip to Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Or not, because I'm going to read it to you even if you don't. So here's the NRSV text. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Then the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said, "Look, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Pretty interesting, right? It's also a pretty common story, and the lesson is generally about, humanity getting a pride check and that they should rely on God. However, there's more nuance present, and we love nuance here. It can be a bit unnerving thinking about God getting scared of us and then punishing us for seemingly being so pretty and talented and cool. After all, he is jealous for me. That one's David Crowder. I know the difference between them now. You all can please calm down. So it might be helpful to frame God as a divine parent, trying to, guide humanity away from self-preservation fueled plans. For more insight on this, we'll be listening to the First Reading Podcast's episode on this passage. And in it, one of the co-hosts, the Reverend Dr. Rachel Wren, says this.
Now in verse 5, we get this presentation of God, which is kind of delightful. It says, "The Lord came down to look at the city and the tower that humans had built." And what I find so delightful about this is that they brickify bricks, and then they say, "Come, let us make a giant city with a huge tower with its head in the sky." And in this image of God, God's got to kind of kneel down to see it. He's got to kind of like take a knee just to get a closer look at this thing. So it's this image of this giant God and these itty-bitty human ambitions. But he does come down. He comes down, he takes a divine squat, and he notices, they're one people with one language, and look what sort of a thing they are beginning to do. Nothing will be impossible for them. All that they imagine, they'll do.
And she goes on to talk about how, there is a little bit of fear present in God's approach, even though this tower is more like a Lego set than an actual threat. But what type of fear is it? Is it an insecure fear that humans are going to overtake God, or is it something different? Well, I'm not a parent, so I'm going to let the First Reading Podcast's co-hosts do the talking here.
I mean, Tim, I would be willing to bet that your first reaction, the first time you saw your kids walking, your very first reaction was celebration, right?
Sure, yeah.
Then do you remember your second reaction?
Oh, crap.
Cover all of the outlets. Get everything up high. We are in trouble.
Nothing they propose to do will be out of their reach.
Yeah, right, exactly. They can reach anything now. So I don't know if that's the image that's going on here, but it does seem to help us make sense of what is causing this issue for the divine being.
So, in other words, God covers the outlets and scatters the people so they don't hurt themselves or each other. Yet still, generally speaking, the Tower of Babel was a fail, and trying to rebuild it would be futile. But haven't we tried so many times? What do you all think empires are? It's not a coincidence that Babel and Babylon sound the same. They're actually the same word. And who is a modern-day Babylonian empire, or really any empire in the Bible? Then I'm going to say it. Oh, she's going to say it. The American Empire. We've already scraped the sky. Bricks are old news. We've moved on to planes, trains, and automobiles. We've even been to space. And I mean, look at you right now. We have the internet, which zoom, zoom, zoom. We're all connected now. But also the beep boop machine makes my brain sad. It's a double-edged sword, this whole globalization thing. But maybe the Tower of Babel can help us with that too. What if the Tower of Babel isn't just a cautionary tale about not getting too big for your britches, but also a celebration of diversity? Huh? What? The Tower of Babel can have a positive reading too? Yeah, welcome to the Bible. It can mean anything as long as you just stare at it enough or think about it enough. That's the fun of it. That's why there are so many books. There are so many God books. And that's why you can go to God school. So speaking of God books, we're going to look at Walter Brueggemann's analysis of this and his commentary on Genesis. And he is a white man. He's an old white man, actually, even. But he's got some good ideas. So we'll let him have it. He argues that a fear of scattering is actually antithetical to God's, whole plan for creation. You want to talk about God's design for womanhood? It's like a one-size-fits-all model that's like clearly spelled out in the Bible, which is a myth. Just the idea of one design is not the thing. It's not the vibe. It's not, I'm trying to conform everyone into one way of doing Christianity or one way of doing anything or being anything is resisting God. He writes this. The purpose of God is neither self-securing homogeneity, as though God is not Lord, nor a scattering of autonomous parts as though the elements of humanity did not belong to each other. If it helps, imagine God's design for humanity as kind of like Maya Angelou's Human Family poem.
I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
God desires individuals to be unique, but also united. If we focus too much on differences, then we can't be united. But at the same time, if we diminish our differences, we miss out on so much beauty and perspective that comes from diversity. I'm doing something I don't like to do, which is bringing in the New Testament when I'm talking about the Old Testament. But 1 Corinthians 12, for all of you Paul lovers out there, echoes the same sentiment with the whole thing about how we all have different strengths or gifts, and none is greater than the other, and how if one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. And for context, this verse is within the whole story about being the body of Christ. We are one body with many parts. So I'm not just like pulling this verse out randomly to make it make sense for what I want it to make sense. Like, this is what it means in the context of the actual whole message. So I'm not a hypocrite. Think about that when it comes to global issues. Global warming, a global pandemic. That's as people are saying, the worst group project I've ever been a part of. And also for all you economy nerds out there, the invisible hand. So then why? And God's green and blue marbled earth is Ken Ham trying to rebuild the Tower of Babel and dedicating it to straw-manning critical race theory. I need to take a break. Hello! I'm launching a Patreon, and there are 3 tiers, and it's going to be a great freaking stinking time. So here are the tiers. We have the first one, just $1 a month, which is more just to show support in general, and it's the bare minimum award, but don't be fooled by the title. I really value you. I just thought it'd be a funny little in-theme title. Then we have paying your indulgences, which is $3 per month, and that you can like vote on topics, and also I have like these like bonus like informal kind of videos that are just like almost like video diaries that you'll have access to. And then for $5 a month, the top tier, you will become a patron saint of Faith Evolving, and it's the same as the second tier, except also you'll get your name in the credits as a patron saint. So those are the options. I'm really excited to keep making content for you all, and I just want to say, if it is not financially feasible for you to become a patron, literally, that is so fine. Part of me is just like, don't give me money. Actually, straight up just like, don't give me money. Watching my videos does help a whole lot. So, thank you for anyone who's donated to the Ko-fi. That's still going to be up for people who want to do one-time donations. Truly, those donations have saved me financially a few times when things were getting a little under the wire. So, yes, Patreon. I'm one of the big boys now. I'm a big boy with the big boy Patreon. Okay, back to the video. I just checked my footage and my camera is freaking out so much trying to figure out whether it should focus on me or the background because the background is so detailed. So sorry you had to see my books showing the intelligence of my mind instead of my face showcasing the beauty of my womanly charms. Okay, back to Ken Ham. He really hates critical race theory. As some of you may know, Ken Ham has his Answers in Genesis blog, dedicated to proving that the Bible is a history and a science book. One of my favorites is regarding the Jonah story. There's a whole subheading that says, "What about digestive juices?" And I think it is the best comedy I've ever seen. So, one thing to know about critical race theory is that I am no expert because it's mainly talked about in terms of law and how systems are built. It is very much so a structural analysis, not about individual biases of one person to another person, but how societal structures influence us. So it's not teaching you to hate white people, just about how society is structured to favor white people because it's a racist society. So it's high level stuff, not anything that's taught to small children. They don't care about the law. So let's look at some of the Answers in Genesis things and tell you about it. So according to the Answers in Genesis .org place, we've got the reason why they're building this Tower of Babel. And Ken Ham claims, okay, so I made a pretty egregious error in this video in that for some reason I thought that Ken Ham wrote everything in Answers in Genesis, but no, it's this large institution with a lot of different writers. So this particular article was actually written by Tim Chaffee. So I don't want to give Ken Ham all the heat because I don't think that's fair. So actually, Tim Chaffee claims that it's the exact opposite of why they built it in the Bible. And I'd say he's like a little bit correct there, a little bit wrong there. So he talks about in the Bible, they were building this tower to glorify themselves, and he's building it to glorify God. I would say his intent is to glorify God, probably. Whether he achieves that goal is up to your own theology. I think maybe like helping the oppressed is glorifying God, but maybe I've been reading too much liberation theology. I do have, where is it on here? I do have James Cone's God of the Oppressed behind me, so all right, we'll keep going. He says, our goal certainly isn't to build a structure reaching into the heavens, so don't you fret. Okay. All right, here's where it gets really interesting. On this website, this is an exact quote. Second, our culture has been inundated by false views of our origins, teaching that we evolved from ape-like ancestors. While most evolutionists are probably not racist, the philosophy they hold is inherently racist. A lot of hot takes here. Okay. Implying that some people groups are more closely related to apes than others. Okay. We're going to come back to this whole ape thing. Let me keep reading. The Bible provides us with the true history of humanity. What people classify today as racial differences are rightly explained by the Babel event. Noah's descendants scattered from Babel in family groups and settled new lands. Separated from one another, the various groups began to express distinct traits. No group is more evolved than any other. I feel like the Tower of Babel is more a story conveying, universal truths rather than journalism. But I will agree with him that no human is more evolved than another human. And this is where Ken Ham, actually Tim Chaffee, shows how little he knows about what evolution is. I mean, if you didn't get that from the debates with Bill Nye, you'll get it now. So evolution, speaking from like 7th grade learning about this, is about how species evolve / adapt, keyword adapt, based off of survival and necessity for survival. And that's where like survival of the fittest comes in. And survival of the fittest can also get racist, okay? Let's be real here. It has been used against people with disabilities and people who aren't white, people who aren't male, because of an overemphasis on like rationality and hierarchical structure. And that's all a myth. That is the way that we've taken science and made it be about morality. So we're going to not do that. And I think part of that is because nowadays we have this idea of evolving, meaning being better. When it comes to skin tones, it's not one is better than the other. It's about what is a better fit for the surroundings that humans are in. So back to this ape thing, because it pissed me off because I read the science about this. Humans, according to evolution, evolved from chimpanzees. And chimpanzees had light skin. Okay? Look at a picture of a chimpanzee right now. But they also had hair covering them. Now, as humans got progressively more hairless, their skin was exposed to the sun, and so it was like, ouchie, ouchie, we're getting burnt. So skin got darker. But then also, as humans were getting further from a climate with a lot of sun, guess what happened? A fun thing I learned is that this is less about like sunburns and skin cancer and more about the production of vitamin D. The more north you get, I mean, think about like England. There isn't a lot of sunlight, and you need sunlight in your production of vitamin D, and it's necessary for a lot of different things. And it's very, very hard to overdose on vitamin D, but a deficiency can do a lot of damage. So lighter skin processes or produces vitamin D like more efficiently. And since there was less sun, people with lighter skin survived more. And people, where there's more sun, got enough sunlight, but they also didn't want to get burnt. So they generally had darker skin. And there's some caveats about this because Inuit people have darker skin. And there's some studies that part of it has to do with diet and culture. And it's a super complex thing. But none of it has to do with anyone being better or more complex than the other. Does it need to be said? We're all the same species as humans on a biological level. It's just a little healthy genetic diversity. And in a modern context, anybody can live anywhere because we've got vitamin D supplements and sunscreen. Where the issues arise is because we live in a racialized society. And so, cultures have developed out of this in good ways and bad ways, but also hierarchies and oppression. And no one is saying it has anything to do with biology, unless if they're hardcore, super racist. And so that's the end of my science rant, but I didn't go to fucking school for science. Any scientists, please fact check me, because that was just me ranting based off of some articles I read, and I know that's not adequate research, okay? I didn't conduct the studies myself, but I read about these studies, and I thought it was interesting. So, there you go. So people like Ken Ham get butthurt about evolution. But what I do know is, why can't this complexity and this creativity and adaptability that comes from a diversity of skin tones so that people can survive in their environments, not a revelation of God's love and care for creation? And how wonderful of a creator God is? Instead, we just get angry. And I mean, I'm angry right now, but we get angry? So why does Ken Ham hate critical race theory so much that he's building a monument apparently to God to try to discredit it? Again, I falsely attributed this to Ken Ham. Actually, it was written by Brandon Clay. But just know that Ken Ham has said his own things, and you can just look at his Twitter, and that he agrees with this guy. So this is top down. Well, because he thinks that it's discriminating against white people. I'm not joking. He has an article. He writes that race doesn't exist in the Bible, which is true. And he even admits that race is a social construct, but fails to realize that race, this freaking made up thing, still affects people's real material lives. Oh, he also writes that it promotes ethnic discrimination. This is where it gets terrible. And he gets really angry about Dr. Walker Barnes, quote, in A Rhythm of Prayer, a collection of meditations for renewal, where she writes, "Dear God, please help me to hate white people, or at least want to hate them. She also goes on, that he didn't include, at least I want to stop caring about them individually, collectively. I want to stop caring about their misguided racist souls, to stop believing that they can be better, that they can stop being racist. And the thing here is that I forgot that I actually own this book, and the whole thing is about being earnest and honest and vulnerable in prayer. And this particular prayer is called Prayer of a Weary Black Woman. And in it, Dr. Walker Barnes goes through and is honest and is lamenting her weariness to God. And it's so powerful. And the fact that it's being discounted for the very reason why she wrote it is heartbreaking and also absolutely infuriating. Screw it, I referenced it earlier, we're reading from God of the Oppressed. When it comes to this expression of frustration and earnesty to God, let's keep in mind Dr. Cone. The truth of Black religion is not limited to the literal meaning of the words. Truth is also disclosed in the movement of the language and the passion created when a song is sung in the right pitch and tonal quality. Truth is found in shout, hum, and moan as these expressions move the people closer to the source of their being. The moan, the shout, the rhythmic bodily responses to prayer, song, and sermon are artistic projections of the pain and joy experienced in the struggle of freedom. You have to read between the lines. You have to listen to other people and their experiences. It goes back to Walter Brueggemann and the Tower of Babel that you so want to rebuild. Failed speech is linked to the disappearance of trust. Not listening is related to death in a relationship. To fail to listen means to declare the other party null and void. A society which suffers failed speech, as in our text, not only cannot build towers, it cannot believe promises, cannot trust God, cannot be human. And now I want to proceed with caution here, because this emphasis on listening language isn't accessible to all people. So think about this more as communication rather than just auditory listening. If Ken Ham and the other people involved in this project that so dislike critical race theory or teaching kids about the real experiences in history and how they're affecting reality today, if he continues to gatekeep how Black people express their pain and their frustration with the racist society we live in, then he has no right to sit and plan out this Tower of Babel thinking that he understands why diversity is important. If he's failing to listen to other people, communicate with other people about their experiences and trying to understand, he is no better than the people who built the Tower of Babel in the first place. And I can only imagine how frustrated God is right now that we are consistently missing the point. I'm fired up. I know there's a lot I've probably missed. I know I focused mainly on whiteness and Blackness when there is so much diversity and different cultures and different skin tones that didn't even come into this. And also that whiteness and Blackness are not monoliths either. But I'm frustrated, and I didn't expect this video to be this long. The first part was scripted, and then when I just went off about Ken Ham, that's just been me yelling in my apartment. I really, really, really would love to hear your all's thoughts in the comments, what I might have missed, if I could have said anything better, because this is just me and a point in time expressing my frustration based off of my education level at this point in time, or my knowledge of the world. And I've gotten away from saying this at the end of my videos, but please fact check me. I've got things to learn from the Tower of Babel, too. I really do. God is good. God has grace. God wants us to, be pals with each other. And I think it's time I stop talking. You can become a patron. Yeah, I forgot. I also did that in this video. I announced that I have a Patreon. So thank you all for sticking through the wild roller coaster that this was. I also still have my Ko-fi if you don't want to commit to like a monthly thing and just want to do a one-time donation. I have my merch. Just a couple little things. I just probably should have waited until I was a bigger creator, but I got excited. Okay, I'm having fun. I'm like, ooh, merch. Okay. I need to stop. I really need to stop talking. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Okay, bye.